Thank you. It's nice to see you all today. Don't let me interrupt your breakfast, but I wanted to get going a little bit because I know you all have places to be today. How's the sound? I'm thinking about using the microphone. If it goes on. What do you think? Is that better? Do you want that or yeah? Okay, I'll do that. I know I don't always carry so well. See if I move away too without running into the waiters. So thank you all for coming out today. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to see so many people concerned about the future of independent business in this community. And I want to thank the Capital Region Independent Business Alliance and Jim for inviting me here today. I'm really excited about this organization and about other organizations like this that are springing up around the country and really having a tremendous impact on the choices that people make about where they shop and where they spend their dollars. The last 20 years has been, it's been a tough road for independent businesses in this country. We have lost tens of thousands of independent retailers as large national chains have grown dramatically in nearly every category. Home Depot and Lowe's, for example, barely existed 20 years ago. Today they capture half of all hardware and building supply sales in this country. We've lost about 5,000 independent hardware stores. Barnes & Noble and Borders, again, barely existed 20 years ago. Today they capture half of all spending at bookstores. We've lost about 3,000 independent bookstores. And on down the line, Rite Aid and Walgreens in the pharmacy business, Starbucks in the coffee business, chain restaurants of all kinds. And of course, at the top of all of these categories is Walmart. Walmart is a company that is so large, it's almost impossible to get our minds around just how big it is. Walmart currently captures $1 out of every $10 that Americans spend at retail stores. They are the largest grocer in the country. They capture 20% of all grocery spending. They sell more jewelry, magazines, albums, furniture, clothing, and a host of other products, more than any other retailer. They are the #1 in all of those categories. This trend, I mean, a lot of people say, well, you know, this goes back to Woolworths and A&P and all that sort of thing, and to some extent that's true, but if you look at the trend line, what you see is that this accelerated dramatically in the last 15 to 20 years. And the consolidation that we have seen in the retail economy is just unprecedented. These companies have amassed a market power that's really unparalleled in history, and we have never seen this kind of consolidation so rapidly. The implications of this trend, I argue in the book, are far-reaching, and they're really quite profound, and they extend into so many areas of our economy and of our communities and our society, ways that people don't even know, things that people don't even think about have been affected by the loss of independent businesses and the growth of these companies. We think we're getting a bargain, but there are a host of hidden costs, and I really wrote the book to expose what some of those costs are and to sort of raise the alarm about what's at stake here and what the future of our country is. One of the things, the sort of argument that you always hear when a big box store wants to come into a community is that this is going to create economic growth. This is progress. But there's a mountain of evidence that suggests that these companies actually take far more out of our local economies than they put back in. As the big boxes have grown, they have really undercut these key pillars of the American middle class. One, of course, is small business owners. We have lost tens of thousands of small business owners in the last 15 to 20 years. And as those businesses have closed, it's had all these ramifications on the local economy. Not only have the owners and their families lost their livelihoods, but so too, of course, have their employees. One of the big myths about big box stores is that they create retail jobs. Certainly they create jobs, but they actually eliminate more retail jobs than they provide. And we know this from a very extensive study that was done at the University of California by a group of economists out there who looked at 3,000 Walmart stores that had opened nationwide going back to the 1970s and found that on average every new job created by one of those stores caused the loss of 1.4 existing jobs in the local economy. And And the reason for this is pretty simple if you think about it. Just because Target or Walmart opens a new store, it doesn't mean people in the community have more money to spend. So invariably, sales gains at that new store are losses at existing businesses as those businesses downsize or close, they lay people off, and the end result is actually more job losses than gains. And the reason for that is that many of these big box stores do the same amount of sales with fewer employees. And you know, if you've ever wandered the aisles of a Home Depot trying to find someone to help you, you can sort of see how that's the case. It's not just the employees who've lost as small businesses have closed, but all of these other businesses in a community lose out when independent retailers go by the wayside. My organization did a study a few years ago where we looked at where the dollars go that are spent at locally owned retail stores. And we found that every dollar spent in a local retail store, on average, about 54 cents of that dollar stayed in the local economy. And a major reason for that is that local retailers buy goods and services from other local businesses. You know, they bank at the local bank, they hire the local accountant, they get their printing done at the local print shop, they carry more goods that are made and produced locally or within the region. And the result is that every time you shop at a local store, you're not only supporting that business, but you're sending this ripple of economic benefits through your economy and creating all of this economic activity. Our study then looked at a sort of typical big box store, and what we found is that only 14 cents of that dollar that you spend there stays in the local area. The rest leaves. You know, they don't have a need for local banks. They don't hire local accountants and attorneys and web developers. They don't do any kind of spending, that sort of spending in the local economy. They don't advertise nearly as much on local radio stations and in local newspapers. And if you think about it, that's another whole host of sort of middle-income jobs in our communities, working at newspapers and at banks and many of these professional services that are being squeezed as a result of the Walmart economy. The other key pillar of the American middle class that's really been undercut by the rise of big boxes are union wage manufacturing jobs. We've lost about 3 million manufacturing jobs in this country since 1990, and there are many reasons behind that trend. But one of the most significant is the pressure that big box retailers have placed on manufacturers to go to low-wage countries. Even manufacturers that would like to stay in this country have really struggled and been unable to do so. A few years ago, for example, Lowe's and Home Depot went to Black & Decker, the tool manufacturer, and they said, look, you either move production out of North Carolina to a low-wage country, or we're not going to sell your tools anymore. And by the way, we have 50% of the market. We're your biggest customer. And not only can we go to one of your competitors, but we can actually contract. We have our own brand, store brand of power tools, and we can contract directly with factories in China and have that made ourselves. And Black & Decker, like a lot of companies, looked at that equation and made the same decision many have, and they shut their factories here, laid off about 5,000 U.S. workers, and moved that production somewhere else. We have seen this just across the line, and with those closures go what have been historically pretty good paying jobs and really backbone of many communities. So in exchange for all of these middle-income jobs that they eliminate, the manufacturing jobs, the small business jobs, the dollars that are being sucked out of the local economy, in exchange for all of that, the only thing that they give us back economically are jobs working in their stores. And these are not good jobs. They're low wage, lacking in benefits in many respects. And just to, I think, a fact that came out in the Ohio newspaper just last week, I think really well illustrates it. The state of Ohio revealed that they have 13,000 Walmart employees enrolled in the state's Medicaid program and receiving public assistance because they simply do not earn enough to get by. And I suspect that that kind of statistic is true in states across the country.